know if that was 3 minutes. Oh, shoot, it just started recording. The people on the recording will miss that lovely intro by myself. But yeah, is that a sufficient 3-minute intro? Hopefully the content also speaks for itself.
Thanks, Kenny.
Yeah. Should I just jump into questions?
Please.
Yeah, let's go.
You want to verbalize yours, and then I already started some response on most of them.
Yeah, I see you started. So the first one is just, metrics seems to be the most important thing, but it wasn't mentioned in the 12-month plan. My suggestion is to mention it maybe after dog fooding, before logging. You suggested after logging. I have a strong opinion about that, but it seems to me it's still more important than logging.
Okay. Yeah, that works. I will propose that. Yeah, I think probably a miss, and we were doing a little bit of conflating of metrics with dashboarding, because the metrics category also includes dashboarding.
Right, I assume it's one of the things where inside dashboarding, to make it worthwhile, you clearly have to have the metrics work well. The first step is making the metrics work well.
Agreed. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Next one, yes, I'm okay with that, suggesting adding the word first. This thing is just in the right place.
Yeah, and Mark, just to dive in on that a little bit, one of the concerns that you raised in the product leadership review was this notion that we weren't signaling appropriately our long-term intent. And so we could also add something that says first, and then have another sentence that says, and then over the 3-year horizon, we plan to improve our support for traditional operators. From my perspective, I use this document to signal primarily to internal teams what we're focused on and what needs to be a priority. It dilutes it a little bit, but I'm fine with that kind of middle ground.
Yeah, I think you're adding that one single word is sufficient. If you want to go farther, that's fine to clarify the 1 year we're specifically doing this, but in the long run, the 3-year, it's different. That's okay too.
Okay.
I just didn't want something stated up above there that was factually correct.
Great.
Number 3, I haven't read your comments yet. So single most important category for configure. What is it?
Yeah, I had responded, in my mind, K8s management, and then infrastructure as code, Kubernetes management, and then infrastructure as code. But I do think we should discuss this. What I gather from the product marketing, the strategic marketing team, is that our planned rollout of use cases is going to immediately start targeting GitOps. And so we could adjust prioritization so that we're working on, you can do GitOps today with GitLab. It would be, and here's some cool things we're working on in the future about our integration with Terraform as a higher priority, since, as I understand it, only after GitOps would we roll out the cloud native use case.
What's the sort of MVC integration with Terraform timeline, just so I can?
Next 2 to 3 releases, we have a bunch of design and discovery going on this release. There's already a pretty good proposal for what an MVC would be.
Okay, so at a minimum, we should wait on that use case.
Well, sorry. Yeah, and I don't think that's the case. I think you could tell a GitOps story today without the Terraform integration. There's tons of customers who use GitLab for infrastructure as code today. We've got tons of use cases for it. There's not a lot of special sauce there. You're using our source control and CI to do it. Right. The Terraform integration is our first hint of special sauce. So if we want to delay it, I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of purview into how much influence I can have over that use case prioritization. I would prefer that we start cloud native over infrastructure as code, but I don't know what was driving that.
You do have input. We got pushed pretty hard by the alliances team to work faster with HashiCorp. So if we're not aligned from a product, if we can't align product alliances and marketing, we should try to. So you do have input into that. So thank you for that. I'll provide that feedback.
Okay. I think we could tell a GitOps story today. We could wait for and have an additional, we're adding this special sauce with a direct partnership with HashiCorp in addition to that, then follow up with cloud native. But I think we are more capable in telling a cloud native story today.
Yeah, I guess my point was the reason I actually reprioritized it up was because of the Alliance team's request to do more with HashiCorp now. And now that I'm hearing that we're not quite ready to do that, it's like, let's make sure we triangulate there. So that's, I'll go back and work that.
Okay.
And you should feel like you have input into the use case kind of maturity and rollout for sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Next question.
Yeah.
So digital experience management, I think you answered about what it is, but the question was more just about where is it in priorities? I just didn't see it listed.
Yeah.
Middle somewhere else.
Today it is like we would do an MVC in order to establish ourselves there and not move forward. I will say the team is actively considering improving or updating its priority or elevating its priority. We have kind of core things that we need to do around dog fooding and metrics and these kind of core monitoring experiences, but I do think there's some value in establishing ourselves with these new types of data sources around user experience. It's a more DevOps friendly operations workflow, if that makes sense, because you're focused on what your actual user is experiencing rather than some system metric or something like that. So it's more forward facing, future market facing, but we have so much that we need to tackle today that I think that debate is still ongoing. So today its priority is low.
And then kind of related, status page and error tracking weren't even mentioned at all in the doc. Is that why they're also very low priority?
Yeah, the status page one was previously not considered a high priority, and Sarah's in the room. Sarah's the product manager for covering that area. The status page was previously not a priority, but in realizing that in order to dog food our incident management capabilities within the ops team, we really needed this status page capability. It would unlock their use of dog fooding. And so it has immediately jumped to a high priority. The team is super focused on it in 12.9 and has some additional work in 12.10. But I don't expect, and Sarah, please correct me if I'm wrong, like I don't expect ongoing improvements to that beyond that. Now that we're dog fooding, we'll probably get a lot of requests for improvement, but I don't expect it to be a high priority. So that is status page. I'll pause there. Okay, and then on error tracking, similarly, we have improved error tracking. I think it's moving to viable in 12.9, and then we will be dog fooding it. And so we're continuing to increase the dog fooding of error tracking. We'll get additional feedback from that and have to make decisions about prioritizing. But again, I don't expect it to have significant additional prioritization.
So they're in a bit of a wait and see. Like if dog fooding shows that it's valuable and we're investing, we will.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when you think about when we start dog fooding a part of the product, it is immediately going to put pressure on us increasing its prioritization. And I think that will cause tension about whether or not we want to prioritize the kind of adding additional, in some cases it's going to be adding support, adding dog fooding for additional functionality. So like if we want to support dog fooding the triage workflow, but we're already dog fooding error tracking and incident management, there's going to be a tension between should we improve our capabilities to enhance the dog fooding of error tracking and incident management or work on building support for the new workflow. So I know that as one of the values of dog fooding is you're going to get feedback and that's going to affect your prioritization, but there are still net new dog fooding initiatives we're going to have to go drive, and we'll have trade-offs between existing dog fooding.
Cool.
Number 6, I was curious, this is actually similar to a conversation we were having earlier at the high level, but you don't need to put it into these 3 categories, but just curious how you're thinking about the percentage of the product investment this year and how much of that is things that you expect to get adopted and get smiles quickly versus over the long term.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would, in blanket terms, think of our configure investment as things that we want to get return on this year. Those are places where we're hoping we get increased cloud native adoption, and the kind of Kubernetes management and infrastructure as code pieces are already use cases our users are hungry for. The investments in monitor, I think it is like we need to prove that we can build a tool that we will dog food, and then I would be comfortable saying this is going to return, and I'm skeptical that that would be within the next 12 months. hopefully 24. It's a great thought experiment, though, to think about where are we investing in long-term versus short-term. I think I saw an MR this morning. You all must have had a discussion about investment thesis tiers, but I do think of monitor as of all the categories, maybe other stages other than defend, the one where we're in the most longer-term investment tier.
Do you have data on what percentage of our customer and user base are fully using Kubernetes? And based on data like there's, what percentage of our customers are really doing true cloud native development? And then what percentage of those users are actually doing it? Where, we'll meet with, large banks like, oh yeah, we're doing cloud native. And it's the 16 people doing modern development. Yeah. And then the other 1,000 are not. Just curious how you're sizing that market right now.
Yeah, I have analyst data. I don't have like direct survey data from our customers, but certainly the analysts suggest that, and they think of it in terms of workload, not necessarily organizations. There are organizations who plan to get started, and then what applications are moving, and they expect, I think, by 2020, it's in the doc. I think by 2023 they expect 35% or something of applications to be cloud native deployed. So increasing rapidly. Today, I think their numbers are in the low single digits or high single digits. And so we expect and see that. I talked to customers who, primarily the customers who are, at least I'm getting in touch with, are ones that come from 100% cloud native shops, where they have, well, the thing that signifies it to me is where they have a Kubernetes infrastructure operations team. And those are the people who generally talk to us about things like Kubernetes management and configuration and infrastructure as code. And those teams, that typically signifies, at least within a BU, that there is a number of teams working in this fashion. Sometimes they're the corporate-wide entity. Kiwi is an example of one that we've spoken to recently, that their platform team has been kind of one of our primary outreaches. But we've not done a survey, as far as I know, that says, within your use of GitLab, how many. The question I would ask is a little bit less Kubernetes and more, how much containerization do you have? If you're containerizing your apps, that's a good target for us for deployment to Kubernetes. If you're not, it's a difficult climb.
Cool, that's helpful.
Yeah. And just so you know, I think Sarah's taking notes and was writing down numbers. I will link to the specific numbers because I didn't recall those by memory.
No, I appreciate that. That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
You answered my question 7. My interest in those 3 most strategically important capabilities is just, it's helpful for me to sort of frame how the team's gonna be talking about this with customers, what we really expect is going to be the meat of that conversation, because I think a lot of the capabilities that we spend time talking about can get us off track. And I think if we know where to return to, you say, look, 80% of the time, they're going to see value in these 3 things. That's a helpful guide to the sales team to make sure we're staying focused in the conversation, not getting off track.
Yeah, and the one new one that I think in our product leadership offsite, I suggested adding to the not our current strategy in ops one, but I think is an interesting one that I'd love to get your take on, McBride, is this the number 3, incident management, which is, regardless of how you're doing, how you're monitoring your application or deploying your application or where you're deploying it, if we could convince you to just create your incidents and collaborate with developers who are responding to those incidents or whoever is responding to those incidents in GitLab with our incident management capabilities, we've kind of locked them into the complete cycle, and then we can pick off their usage of those tools on either end of this. I think of this as we've got you on CI and we've got you on incident management. We can pick off your CD and other places as we grow the account. We are not choosing to prioritize a really robust integration and incident management today, but it is an alternative that I think could, if that's something that would be a compelling use case for the sales team, could lock us into accounts a little bit deeper.
I love the idea of the features having a specific place in the customer journey, and there's a reason why that feature is helping conversion. but we're also lucky to have Chloe here. Chloe, when you look at the whole section, but when you kind of zoom into these three, are these the three that you would sort of say, yeah, those actually kind of stand out to me? They feel like the most high value capabilities we'd be talking about? Or are there other things that you say, I'm actually more likely to spend time on X and get demand from customers on?
I think they're all definitely high value. I can't say offhand if they're the highest value. I can look more into the other ones as well.
Cool. Yeah, because I think you're in a really good spot for everybody in the room. You're where the customers are actually making the decisions about this stuff.
Yeah.
So please chime in where you have observations that are confirming or that are counter to what we've got here. Because I think
I would definitely agree. These are all definitely valuable.
Cool.
What about cost management? Like I went to Next last year, and 20% of the sessions are on cost management.
Well, if the market keeps going the way it is, there's going to be 40% of the sessions.
Yeah, we have intentionally deprioritized cluster cost management. There are some things we could do to set up basic alerts for when your clusters are over provisioned or you're basically like wasting resources. But that, I don't think we have the Kubernetes usage today to effectively play in there, especially when there are existing competitors that are kind of like specifically focused on install this thing on your cluster to get an improvement on your cluster cost.
Get the usage before the optimization. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions on 7? At number 8 as well. This was, I think you may have just answered this, not only in writing here, but in your previous answer, trying to sandwich CD as the customer motion. Did I hear that correctly, or is there a different customer motion you think that's going to be?
Oh yeah, sorry. That is not our current customer motion. It's one we're considering as a primary set of priorities. Today we are planning on essentially like filling, for specific use cases, lightly filling in the whole workflow. So including CD. So if you're on Kubernetes, then you can use our Kubernetes management, install these apps for your platform teams, monitor them with our tools, and get incident management. That is an explicit strategy that says we're kind of foregoing I don't care what you do in between, whether you're using Kubernetes or not, I'm just going to capture your incident management strategy. So we are not pursuing that today. We have some capabilities in incident management that allow you to do that, but it's not a explicit motion that we're pursuing today. It could be one that we do. Yeah, so our current motion is that next step of, we know lots of people get stuck on CD because they don't have a good understanding of Kubernetes. We make Kubernetes easy for you to set up and configure and manage. That's our primary motion, and I think that comes into play when we tell the cloud native story.
Cool. Number 9, biggest problem we're solving that customers can't solve any other way. That was an important additional thing I put on there.
Yeah.
There's the different kinds of competitive advantage we have, but looking for one that's truly differentiated here.
Yeah, and I put my response. It was a great question. I just read it 30 minutes ago, but my immediate reaction was like, oh, there's all these great things. But then I was like, no, those are really just an integration story. So I was trying to think of like delightful moments that aren't just, oh, you get the same thing that you would get from 3 tools, but in 1 tool. And so I put some of them down, but I think it's a great challenge for the team to think through what are those delightful moments that would be unique to GitLab. So the one, I'll just verbalize, one that I thought of was in incident triage. If we could immediately showcase to you, hey, there's a stack trace in this incident. Let me tell you who the developer was who last touched that line of code where the stack trace ends, right? That's a thing that no other tool I'm aware of can make those kinds of connections and is a probably delightful experience. And then the other one was when you start a new project, setting it up for operations. So like giving the project an infrastructure project, an infrastructure definition project, connection to some run books where they can define how they operate that and continue to iterate on it. Today, we largely say auto DevOps is when we deploy it in a CD fashion, but then we don't have much of the auto ops part of auto DevOps.
That's helpful. And So, the other reason why I think this is an important one for us to be able to answer, really in every section, but probably every stage as well, is getting a customer to like capabilities is a lot easier than getting them to be able to convince their company to make change. And usually you need a pretty dramatic difference in order to actually cause an organization to make change and to get budget and things like that. And where we have unique differentiators where somebody can go and say, look, yeah, there's lots of other capabilities in here and maybe some are better or worse than other products. That's a tougher sell than when they say we have to have this capability and this is the only vendor. So you're telling me I can't have this and it's a requirement, and then they can use that as the anchor for a lot of things they also want but are harder to convince the business to commit to change with. Having a clear, unique differentiator when possible just really helps our customer to convince the rest of their business. Even though they might be wanting to do it for a lot of other reasons, we give them an excuse to make change.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will share, last week I did an analyst briefing, maybe it was just Monday, an analyst briefing with the Red Monk team. And one of the things they kind of pushed back on was, it seems like we're telling a story that is just an integration story, and that, to your point, like that integration is not what sells. The thing that sells is some like delightful capability that that as a result of your integration, nobody else can replace. The thing that they went to was actually, they were commenting on my presentation that I kind of skipped over the fact that we do review apps. And they're like, but that's the thing that is so unique to GitLab that only GitLab does as a result of this integration. And those are the things that you should be popping out and saying, nobody else does review apps, we do it. And that's why this integration story is valuable, not because of all the kind of like mushy ways that you can think about integration being better, but the specific is an experience we deliver as a result of that integration.
Todd, for product marketing, I think we could probably be more explicit. It might be good for us to do a quick sort of run through with product and pick the, 6 to 9, maybe there's one per stage, something like that, unique differentiators that we think really are ones that we can call out that nobody else does. Just so that when we're trying to give, because typically that's most useful when someone's already a supporter, but they're having trouble convincing the rest of the business to make a change. When we can give them, here's the things that nobody else gives you. Having those in an easy to communicate and train way would be efficient.
Yeah, I'd like to do that by use case, but yes.
Okay, yeah, great, that's fine too. All right, number 10. This was, so I see your question here, but I must not, I don't think I asked my question well. What I was trying to ask is, on the secure direction page, it says we're targeting developers, developer teams, security teams, SecOps teams, QA engineers, QA teams. But at the end of the day, there's one person, maybe two, that are going to actually be a champion and go push and advocate and tell Eric, well, I'm not going to give up on you, let me buy this tool. Who's the persona that you think is the best target?
In the ops section, right?
Yes.
Okay. In the ops section, we have a similar set of like exact same coloring and naming. It would be, I think, probably the platform team. It's an emerging team that is in support of cloud native developers, and we're building tools that are like unique for them. Another way that you hear about this in the industry is they call it like a managed service provider, in the sense that they're providing underlying services for their developers, including things like a platform and a platform to deploy their applications to, as well as tools to use for monitoring and logging their application, and common tools like the identity provider that they're using across different teams that are creating software for that same tool. So I think it would be that platform team. Let me link to
what title,
platform operator, like the guy at Kiwi that I talked to 2 weeks ago. His title is platform operator.
Platform operator.
Yeah, it's
so that's a major level platform person.
Yeah, it is. So some of them have this. In this case, it's 2 people who manage their platform. In other cases, they have like a central team that manages it. The interesting thing is we We don't necessarily have that here at GitLab, so it's a persona that's a little bit foreign to us. We have infrastructure teams, but we don't have like a central infrastructure platform providing team that supplies that for developers.
Jasmine at Delta?
Sorry, say that again?
Is this Jasmine at Delta?
I'm not
Is
familiar
she
with.
this persona?
Jasmine is the person who won the DevOps Operator of the Year award.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, so I can't answer that specifically. It's typically the person who's providing
Okay.
some centralized services to product development teams. So there's a distinction between app dev and platform dev and
The
platform
shared
ops.
services
Yeah.
tools people.
Yeah, one of the things that and we use this term, we use the persona DevOps engineer. And if you look at our definition of the persona, it's more about the central platform team helping the customer or helping the individual app development teams with things like build, package, and release. But we're talking about that same persona, but as applied to like deploy, configure, and monitor, right? And that is.
Figure or do they code?
Say that again.
Sarah answered yes, but I asked, does the persona configure code? And I asked because for the people that code, they go to these teams to add like a portable skill to their background, like they want to learn Kubernetes, they want to use Prometheus or something like that. And sometimes tech companies, tool companies get in these weird corner cases where the easier you make that person to use your product, you're actually working against their own incentives for working on that thing. They want to build their own stuff. They don't want to have some turnkey thing. So we may, within this persona, we may want to target the people that are flipping switches versus the ones that are doing tools and stuff.
Just turned it out. No,
That's
No, I
today.
would love it.
You want to borrow my hat?
Sorry, Kenny, the temperature in this room is very confusing.
I think I'm under the
I mean, in a state.
Sarah's not one either.
Maybe we should just flip rooms in the mid part of the day. Flip that.
So that's super helpful because, and the reason I was probing on this is that even in this conversation, I noticed we kind of had to walk our way to who's actually the person making a decision, and I think it's super important for us to know who's helping drive a decision and be a champion, because that's who needs to understand and value these capabilities. And I think when you have these conversations with customers and you find people, they say, wow, that person not only was our champion, but gets it and is advocating for it, write down their title and let's see if that starts to make a pattern, because that's the person you're trying to convince to make the decision. You've got a much broader group that you're trying to enable to use the product, but we need that person to be the advocate. And I think this is an area where we're not as mature yet in knowing who to talk to and how to drive an actual decision to be made.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I will highlight, I had been remiss in being handbook first here. And so we always kind of said, oh, there's this persona that's not listed on our personas page. Today, in a discussion with the ops team, we started an MR to add at least the basis of this persona. And then we have ongoing UX research to flesh it out as we learn more about it. But it is an unknown, and we'd been referring to it. I refer to it in this direction page repeatedly without a reference to one of our defined personas. I'm hoping to correct that, and that we will then, as we learn more from our research activities, update that persona.
That's great. And if you have a persona that you're defining specifically, that's specifically the influencer / champion. Ideally, it'd be great if they're a decision maker too, but usually they're trying to influence the decision. That's a great one for us to know who we're targeting and why.
Yeah, and I think today we're a little bit early days in, you had said, who is that target long-term? I think as a long-term target. Today we're focused on the app operators, then we'll be focused on the platform operators, but we still got to get kind of like that underlying usage first before we have the broader platform operators.
Thanks, Kenny.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and since I wrote this, you mentioned dog fooding, so thanks for that. I want to ask, how are we going to make sure that the feedback loop is closed? Because in the past, it seems like everybody's busy. If we're relying on impromptu, informal conversations or osmosis, it doesn't happen, and that feedback doesn't make it back to the product.
Yeah, so we recently added this. Well, let me start by saying this. I think when we talk about dogfooding, there are actually like two, I don't know what you'd call it, like playbooks. One is where we have a set of tools that our internal teams want to use and are unable to because product management has other priorities for various reasons. And so we have established internal customer drives to kind of be the one who can provide direct feedback to product management that product management is a little bit on the hook for responding to and prioritizing appropriately. The other playbook is actually the one that is more common in the ops world, which is the ops world has a set of features. We'd really like to get them used in real world places, but the teams have existing tools that are frankly better than what we're proposing they take over. And so it's kind of this pain point of, I'd like you to take 2 steps back in order for us to start building and investing in our product. And we still have drives on the other side, but I think you could universally say that within the ops section, the product managers are hungry for dogfooding and are the ones pushing for please use our product rather than the other way around. So I'm not concerned about that feedback loop ending on the product side. I think really it's getting the.
So are you asking whether you're getting the engineering feedback loop back?
Yeah,
effectively?
we're asking every team to pay the tax and use a suboptimal product to do their job. But the bet is that the feedback is back to product, the work is prioritized and it's improved, and given back to infrastructure.
It sounds like Kenny's not too worried about prioritizing it because it's a big goal for us. Kenny,
Yeah.
do you think you're getting the feedback from the teams that we need?
Yeah, we've been getting great feedback from the teams. We've consistently gotten feedback. And we've gotten great feedback, and it's affected our prioritization. I really have minimal concern about the product management organization not prioritizing that feedback. We have been super hungry. Like, I still have yet to see where we have taken those steps back. Eric, you said we're like asking them to take the 2 steps back. We're trying to meet them in the middle today, but we still need to then take the 2 steps back, start using that product, and then I'm not concerned that the product organization would love that feedback. We're hungry for feedback in this part of the product. If I didn't state that at the start, our usage is not super high. We've been building features and have not had the kind of like pressure test of real usage. We're all very hungry for that to start happening.
Cool. Then I got 12, which is just within the application, what's your biggest dependency for adoption, customers adopting more monitor?
Yeah, CD is the answer.
So this was a trick question. This is FYI for UK, there's no requested or planned additional headcount or release in this year's plan. So Christopher and I both worried we're going to be underinvesting to help out release, but also monitor downstream.
Yeah, so the answer of release is because we don't see today our support in monitor and configure are about cloud native support. And so that could be, I'm saying it's not, maybe the answer is not CD because you asked about an app dependency. Usage of release enables usage of these later stages. Now, if I don't know if there's a specific, like, here's a feature that release is missing that would enable that usage. It might just be more that as we're focused on this cloud native use case, some of these capabilities don't come until our users and the market meet the,
So
like,
maybe
start
release, because I would make that better, because it was just pure headcount.
Sorry, Eric, I didn't follow the.
I was gonna say, if it's not pure headcount on release, then maybe it's just similar pressure to dog food release more to drive it.
Yeah, and sorry, you had, I'm getting a little bit wrapped around, are we talking about will drive usage in the stage? Because dogfooding would help, but if our customers still aren't adopting cloud native principles or using containers or Kubernetes, like dogfooding helps in so much as it prepares us for that future, but it doesn't immediately drive new users of configure and monitor.
Well, Kubernetes is super easy to adopt when you've got a new project. It's really hard once you've got an existing system that's been running for a while. And so within that champion McBride is looking for, if we segment it by, like, you may be the right persona, but if you're running a 5-year-old system, you should just probably ignore that and go for the people starting up new teams. And there is going to be lead time. Those projects will succeed. They take time to grow, but that's where that's where Kubernetes gets ready.
Yeah, it's if you think about where I started of saying we want to build tools for application developers who are also performing ops tasks in that cloud native world, that would put a heavier emphasis on our open source distribution model to those developers and catching them as they create projects and saying, oh, I've got to create a cloud native project and I need to have it integrated. Oh, GitLab's got these cool tools. I'll use those. I'm using the open source version. And then when their organization comes and says, hey, it's time for us to more thoroughly adopt cloud native architectures, or we're gonna have some central platform team, then the developers are saying, oh yeah, we're already using GitLab for part of that. You should check out what they've got there. Like, that is a long-term play. It's not a, what can we do in the next couple of releases to drive improvement in, or to drive usage in configure and monitor.
Thanks, Kenny. Todd, you got the next one.
So in the 1-year vision, DevOps teams deploying to legacy infrastructure. If Terraform is the answer to that, you may want to be explicit about it because you don't really mention legacy infrastructure anywhere else.
Cool. Yeah, Terraform is the answer. That's what we were talking about. I do, today our infrastructure as code MVC, and it's kind of trying to think of what can we uniquely do, is a integration with Terraform in the merge request. I do think there are other things we can do for other infrastructure definition tools, whether those are Chef or Puppet or others, that enable a really cool experience with those tools in GitLab. You can kind of think of them as other languages that happen to have their code stored in GitLab, and what are the unique things we can do to support those specific languages. And so it's not just today it means Terraform because that's our first MVC, that's our like what's next, but I expect it to expand to not just Terraform and really about how do you can do this today, but how can we make the experience better and how you do it today. Cool. Those were the questions. I don't know if I'm like stepping over your all's lunch, but I hate to be in between an eat group and lunch.
Not there yet.
You're doing great.
Thanks, Kenny. Great job.
Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kenny.
Okay, Todd, just for your FYI, we're gonna do the rest of the sessions all in the other Zoom link that we were